even to your old age and gray hairs. I am He. I am He who will sustain you. Isaiah 46:4. It had been a long day, the kind of day where the minutes feel heavier than usual, where silence lingers in the hallway a little too long, and the chair by the window seems to wait for someone who never quite arrives. In a small town just past the river bend, nestled between cottonwoods and old stone fences, lived a woman named Ruth. She was 82. Her steps had slowed. Her voice was soft as linen folded over time, and her hands, those faithful hands, held the stories of decades. Each evening, Ruth would sit by her window and light a small oil lamp. It wasn't for reading. It wasn't even for the dark. It was a prayer, a quiet one, a wordless one, a simple, steady light to say to the night, I'm still here. And God is, too. She never missed a night, not even on the lonely ones. Ruth had lived a quiet life, not unremarkable, but simple. A school teacher for nearly 40 years. A wife to Henry, who had gone to Jesus 17 autumns ago, and a mother to one daughter, who now lives states away too far to visit often. Though Ruth never blamed her for that. There was a kind of hush in Ruth's home. Not sorrow, exactly, but something tenderer, like a hush that knows how to pray. Her house was full of little things that remembered love. A lace curtain she had stitched the year Henry retired, the chipped blue teacup he'd always reached for first, a hymn book with corners worn from use, and the lamp, always the lamp. She had started lighting it the day Henry passed, not because she needed light to see, but because she needed light to remember. The world changes fast. People come and go. But Ruth believed that something sacred happens when a light is kept faithfully, night after night. As if God Himself notices, she would whisper as she lit it, Lord, I'm still waiting on you. And I trust you see me. Take a deep breath. Rest here for a moment. She did not know that others in town had noticed the lamp. A young boy, biking home from his shift at the diner, would glance at it each night, his unspoken sign that someone in this world cared about quiet things. A widow across the field, who could no longer sleep through the dark hours, would smile when she saw the small flicker and whisper, Thank you, Lord, for Ruth. Even the mailman, tired after his long route, found comfort in that tiny glow by the window, like a lighthouse in a sea of ordinary houses. But Ruth never knew. She simply lit the lamp because the world can feel dark sometimes, and her soul had learned to keep watch. Her Bible lay open on the table beside her, the spines soft from so many returnings. Tonight's reading had been Isaiah. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He, she whispered. It made her cry, though only gently. There was no pain in it, just relief. Relief that God remembered her, that He had not moved on. Because sometimes, when your body grows tired and your name isn't called as often anymore, you begin to wonder if you're still seen. But the verse told her no, promised her, I will carry you. So she lit the lamp again, not for herself, not entirely, but as a quiet flame of faith, a sign to any wandering soul. Someone is praying here, and the Lord is near. Bedtime. Takeaway. You are not forgotten. God sees the small light you keep. and he is near, even now. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Morning sunlight had a way of touching Ruth's house gently. It would spill in through the lace curtains, stretching slow across the wooden floor, brushing the shelves lined with old photos and fading books. Some mornings felt longer than others. The silence, especially after breakfast, seemed to stretch its arms across the hours. But Ruth had learned not to fight it. She had made peace with quiet. After all, isn't that where God often speaks? She would brew her tea and carry it carefully to the same chair by the window, the same place where the lamp would glow each night. It had become her small altar, her soft sanctuary. And as she sat, she would not hurry. Some days she would simply look, watch the leaves shimmer, trace the clouds, listen to the stillness. She never called it prayer, but it was. Lord, she would whisper now and then, I don't have many words, but I'm here. And heaven always answered, even in the silence. One morning, as she sipped from the chipped blue teacup, she noticed something strange. There was a small stone on her porch. It hadn't been there the day before. Smooth and oval-shaped, it had words written in careful childlike handwriting. You're not alone. She held it in her hand and stared at it for a long time. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. A small smile touched her face, and tears quietly followed. She didn't know who had left it. She didn't need to. That afternoon, she placed the stone gently at the base of the lamp. It seemed to belong there, like it had always been waiting. Take a deep breath. Let your heart grow still. The next week, there was another visitor. She didn't hear him arrive. He was too careful for that. But when she opened her door to water the flower pot, there he stood at the edge of the path. A boy, no older than 12, holding something behind his back. They looked at each other for a long moment. No words. Just the quiet space between them. Finally, Ruth gave a soft smile and stepped back from the doorway, as if to say, it's all right. The boy approached, his face red with nervousness. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I see your lamp every night when I ride home. Ruth's heart stirred gently. I like it, he added quickly. It makes me feel like someone is still awake. She nodded. I am. He pulled out what he was hiding, a small card with a drawing of the lamp and a note written in colored pencil. Thank you for keeping your light on. Ruth placed a hand on her chest, overwhelmed. Would you like some cookies? She asked. The boy nodded. They sat together on the porch for a little while, not saying much, just sharing the kind of silence that isn't awkward, only kind. After he left, Ruth sat back down by her window, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel quite so invisible. That night, when she lit the lamp, she paused longer than usual. The stone, the drawing, the visit, they were not coincidences. They were reminders that even when we grow older, slower, quieter, God still brings us unexpected company, sometimes through a child's hand, sometimes through the hush of morning light. He comes quietly, but faithfully, and Ruth knew he was near. Bedtime. Takeaway. Stillness is not emptiness. God fills even the quiet with His love. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. Psalm 34:18. There was a drawer Ruth rarely opened. It wasn't locked, just tucked away. Inside were little things she hadn't quite known what to do with. A church bulletin from Henry's memorial service. A dried corsage from her daughter's wedding, long ago. And a letter never sent, never finished. It was written in her hand. The paper had yellowed, the ink faded slightly, but she remembered the moment she began it. It was 2 weeks after Henry had gone to glory. The house had felt unbearably empty. She had tried praying out loud that day, but ended up sitting in silence, staring at the same lamp she now lit each night. So she wrote, not to anyone in particular, just to God, and to the ache in her chest. She picked up the letter now, her hands trembling only slightly. Dear Lord, I don't know how to do this part. I thought I was ready. We had a good life. We laughed more than we cried. We prayed over every supper. But now the nights stretch too wide, and my hands feel empty when they're not holding His. Please, help me remember that you are still with me, that love doesn't leave. That light still shines. She had stopped there, folded the page gently, and placed it in the drawer. That was 17 years ago. Ruth held the letter now, close to her chest, not in grief, but in reverence. It was no longer just a cry. It had become a testimony. She had lived every word she wrote. She had made it through the long nights. God had not left her. She stood, moved quietly to the window, and watched the trees bend slightly in the breeze. A bird landed on the sill. Its wings fluttered once. Then it settled in, as if to rest beside her. She smiled. The letter would stay in the drawer, but not because it was unfinished. It was simply complete in another way now. Every day that had followed was a continuation of its prayer. And every night she lit the lamp. It was a kind of answer. Take a deep breath. Let the silence hold you like a soft blanket. Later that evening, she tucked a fresh piece of paper into the drawer beside the old one. No words written yet, just a clean page. Waiting. It was her way of saying, I'm still listening, Lord, and I still believe. Outside, the wind whispered low through the trees. The boy with the bicycle passed by again, glancing up at her window. The widow across the way sighed in relief when she saw the familiar glow. And Ruth, steady in her chair, breathed in the peace of a God who never left. Bedtime. Takeaway. Your quiet prayers are not forgotten. God remembers, even the ones you wrote long ago. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. John 14:27. Sunday mornings always move slowly in Ruth's house. The kettle whistled just before dawn. The floors creaked their usual greeting. And Ruth would hum old hymns while buttering her toast, her voice barely louder than the sound of the spreading knife. She hadn't gone to church in a long time. It wasn't because she didn't want to. Her legs simply couldn't manage the steps anymore. But her heart still went every Sunday. She would sit with her open Bible, the lamp beside her, still warm from the night before, and let the words of Scripture be her sanctuary. She missed the singing, the fellowship, the sound of pews shifting with old coats and shared laughter. But she had grown to love this quieter liturgy. Sometimes she would close her eyes and imagine she was back in the third pew on the left, her hand resting in Henry's, the sun glowing through the stained glass. And somehow, even in the quiet of her little house, she still felt surrounded, still part of something holy. But this Sunday was different. Just as she had finished her tea, there came a soft knock at the door. Not the hurried kind, but the gentle kind, careful, hopeful. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door slowly and blinked in the soft morning light. A young man stood there, no older than 30. He wore a simple sweater and carried a satchel slung over his shoulder. His smile was kind, but uncertain. "Are you Miss Ruth?" She nodded slowly. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, voice low, respectful. "I'm from the little white church on Cedar. I've heard stories about your lamp." Ruth raised her eyebrows gently, heart stirred. He continued, "My grandmother used to point it out to me when I was small. She said, that light means someone's praying, someone who hasn't forgotten God." I always remembered that. Ruth's eyes welled with tears she didn't try to stop. He smiled shyly. "I became a pastor a few years ago. Just got assigned here. I guess I wanted to say thank you for keeping the light, for being part of the church, even when you weren't in the building. Take a deep breath. Let peace wrap around you like a shawl." She invited him in. They sat in the little living room, quiet but comfortable. She offered him a cup of tea. He accepted. He asked about her favorite scriptures. She asked about his calling. They spoke of simple things: faith, seasons, how to hold on to peace in the long evenings. Before he left, he pulled a small object from his satchel. "I brought this for you," he said. It was a small, hand-carved cross made from olive wood, a gift from his time studying in Jerusalem. "I thought it should rest where the light is." Together, they placed it beside the lamp. Ruth didn't speak for a while. She only looked at the lamp, the cross, the little stone, the note from the boy, all gathered now in one place. An altar made not of marble or gold, but of faith kept in small ways, over many years. The pastor stood to leave. Before he did, he took Ruth's hand and said softly, "Your light helped guide me. You never saw me riding past, but God used your faith to help me find mine when he was gone." Ruth sat in the hush again, but it was a full hush, rich with peace, the kind Jesus promised. She lit the lamp again that night, not out of habit, but out of deep, resting joy. Bedtime. Takeaway. Your quiet witness matters. God uses even the unseen moments of your faith. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. The air had changed. It came softly, like a lullaby on the edge of the wind. Ruth had felt it before she saw it, that quiet stillness that comes just before snow. She pulled her shawl tighter and settled into her chair. Outside, the sky hung low and gray, as if heaven were leaning in close. The trees, now bare of leaves, stood still in reverence, and the world waited. Then slowly it began. Snow. Not loud or hurried, just the gentle kind. Flakes like feathers, falling without sound, like grace. Ruth watched them drift past her window, one after another, each one unique, each one falling as if on purpose. She loved the first snowfall. It reminded her of being small again, boots too big, scarf too long, cheeks red with wonder. And it reminded her of Henry. He had loved winter, said it made the world look like a hymn, said snow was how God painted silence. She smiled at the thought. Take a deep breath. Let your soul quiet under the snowfall. In her lap lay the cross the young pastor had given her, smooth and warm from her hands. She thought about how time had passed, how this house had seen so many seasons, some full of joy, others full of quiet ache, but all of them held, all of them carried. And now, here she was again, watching snowfall, feeling the hush, and knowing in her bones that God had not changed. He was the same in the winter of life as he was in spring, the same when surrounded by people and when alone. A soft knock came at the door. It startled her only slightly. She hadn't expected visitors on a snow day. It was the widow from across the field. She held a small tin in her hands. I baked shortbread, she said. Felt like someone might want some. Ruth chuckled. You read my mind. The woman stepped in, brushing snowflakes from her shoulders. They sat together by the lamp. Two older women, two quiet lives, bound not by years, but by faith and kindness. They didn't talk much, just shared warm tea, a few smiles, and stories spoken more with eyes than words. And as the snow kept falling, Ruth realized something beautiful. The light she had kept by the window wasn't only for others. It was for her, too. A reminder that her soul was never left in the dark. That even in her winter, Jesus sat with her. He came not with noise or fanfare, but like snow, like peace. Bedtime, takeaway. Even in the winter of life, God's presence falls gently like snow, covering everything in peace. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I will carry you. Isaiah 46:4. It was the middle of the week when the envelope came. Ruth almost missed it tucked between a catalog and a circular she never read. But the handwriting caught her eye. Soft loops, careful strokes. A name she hadn't seen in years. Anna. Her daughter. Ruth held the envelope in both hands and stood very still. The room seemed to lean in with her, holding its breath. Anna hadn't written in a long while. Not because of a rift, not out of anger. Just the way life sometimes pulls people in different directions, and the days slipped by, unnoticed. They had spoken on the phone a few months ago. Short conversation, polite, but quiet in the way only mothers know when a daughter is holding something back. Now, here was a letter. She opened it slowly. The paper inside had a small pressed flower folded within it, a forget-me-not, and the first words made Ruth's hand cover her heart. Mama, I've been meaning to write for a long time. I think about you every day. I just haven't known how to say everything I've been feeling. But last night, I dreamed of the lamp, the one you always keep by the window. In the dream, it was raining, and I was lost. But I saw that little light from far off, and I knew you were still there. I cried when I woke up. I miss you. I've been going through something hard. I'll tell you more soon. if I can. But for now, I just wanted you to know your light still reaches me. Even here, even now. Love, Anna. Ruth closed her eyes, let the paper fall gently to her lap, and wept. Not a loud cry, not a broken one, just a release, a quiet undoing of all the lonely years, a letting go of the wondering. She was still needed, still remembered, still a mother. Take a deep breath. Let that truth hold you. She stood and walked slowly to the lamp. It was still early in the day, but she lit it anyway. She whispered, "Thank you, not just for the letter, but for all the quiet ways God had kept the connection alive. The boy with the bike, the pastor, the neighbor with cookies, the snowfall, the cross, the prayer written in ink long ago. All of it had been leading to this, not a grand reunion, not a perfect fix, but something truer, a flicker of hope reignited, a line across the distance, woven in mercy. That night, as the stars blinked gently over the fields, Ruth sat in her chair with a soft smile. The lamp glowed steady, and somewhere, maybe in another state, maybe just across time, Anna felt it. The warmth, the presence, the unspoken prayer that always wrapped around her, even when words failed. Bedtime. Takeaway. God carries our love across every distance. And sometimes, He brings it home again. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. The wind had settled. The trees stood silent, like old men in prayer, and the sky wore its soft lavender shawl, folding the earth into quiet. It was evening again, and Ruth, wrapped in her favorite knitted blanket, sat by the window, the lamp glowing beside her, a golden heartbeat against the hush. She felt something different tonight. Not sadness, not even joy exactly, just stillness, full and deep. Like the whole world had taken a breath and let it go slowly. From somewhere far away, maybe the next street over, maybe deeper still, she heard the faint sound of a hymn, a voice, old and thin, carried on the wind. It was Abide With Me. She closed her eyes. She hadn't heard that song in years. Take a deep breath. Let its melody carry you. She remembered singing it beside Henry, their hands clasped tightly on the last Sunday they spent together in church. She remembered singing it to herself in the kitchen on a day when the world felt too big and too empty. And now, here it was again, threading through the air like a lullaby from heaven. She hummed along, her voice barely above a whisper. Hold thou thy cross before my closing eyes. Tears gathered, but they did not fall. The song passed like a breeze, and in its place, silence returned. But a deeper silence now. A silence that wasn't empty, but filled with God. She felt Him near, not just in the song, not just in the lamplight, but in her very breath. He had always been near, even when the letters stopped, even when the house went quiet, even when her strength slipped softly away, year by year. And He was here now, as close as the flame, as steady as the snow, as gentle as the hymn she'd just heard. She whispered, "Thank you for staying." Outside, a few stars blinked through the dusk. The wind kissed the windows softly. The boy on his bicycle didn't ride by tonight. The pastor had already called earlier in the day. But Ruth wasn't lonely. She was full of years, full of prayers, full of peace. She let her head rest against the side of the chair. The lamp flickered beside her like a candle at the altar. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself truly rest. No unfinished thoughts, no worries about tomorrow. Just stillness, held. Bedtime, takeaway. You are surrounded by peace. God is here, even in the quietest songs of the evening. I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. The morning was soft. A fine mist covered the grass outside, and the sky glowed with a pale blush, the color of early dawn. The birds had not yet begun their songs. The world was in between. In the quiet house, the lamp still glowed. Someone walking past that morning might not have thought much of it. Just a little golden light by a window, like always. But something had changed. Inside, Ruth sat peacefully in her chair, eyes closed, hands folded gently in her lap. She looked as if she had only just drifted off to sleep. No struggle, no fear, just rest. Real rest, the kind she had trusted in, the kind she had whispered toward, night after night, the kind that only comes when one has truly been carried. The house was still not empty, just deeply, quietly full of memories, full of prayers, full of God. Take a deep breath, let your heart lean gently into the hush. The neighbor across the field was the first to notice. She saw the lamp was still lit well past dawn. That had never happened before. She waited a few more hours before walking over, just to be sure. When the pastor arrived later that afternoon, he stepped into the home as one might step into a chapel. He didn't speak for a long while. He just stood by the lamp, touched the cross beside it, read the little note the boy had written, ran his fingers gently across the stone with the words, "You are not alone." And he wept, not with sorrow, but with something deeper. Gratitude, wonder. The kind of holy ache that comes from witnessing a life fully lived. That evening, the lamp was left on, not out of habit, but in reverence. The pastor sat in Ruth's chair for a while and opened her Bible, worn and soft. The pages falling naturally to Isaiah. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I will carry you. He whispered the verse aloud. Then he whispered a thank you. Later, he wrote a small sign and placed it in the window next to the lamp. It read simply, "The light still shines," because it did. Not just in the lamp, but in every heart that had been warmed by Ruth's quiet faith. The boy with the bike would grow up and become a teacher, and he would tell his students about the lady who kept her lamp lit every night. The widow across the field would start hosting Sunday teas in her kitchen, and every time someone asked why, she would smile and say, "Because Ruth would have liked it." And Anna would come. She would sit in the chair by the window, read her mother's Bible, and let the presence in the house wrap around her like a familiar blanket. And maybe on a quiet night, she too would light the lamp. Not for herself alone, but for every soul who still needed to know God is near, even in the quiet. especially in the quiet. Bedtime. Takeaway. The light does not go out, even when we can no longer see it. God keeps it burning. You can rest now, beloved one. You are seen, you are held, and the light still shines.